Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to take on a reel that Scott sent me. He sent me 3 of them. A very, very sluggish but beautiful looking Daiwa. It's a Daiwa 7850 RL. And interestingly enough, this is one of those reels where you may actually see a Sears reel with the same writing underneath. It says engineered and developed by Daiwa Corp in California, so it was made for the U.S. market. This one bears the Daiwa name tag on it. You may find them out there with the Ted Williams tag on it, the J.C. Higgins tag on it, and others, or Sears, just plain Sears. But this one is a Daiwa reel. We're going to see if we can't take up and work that magic on this, get this reel out there working again. This one has an interesting on-off switch. This little button here is the on for the clicker, and on this side it's the off for the clicker. Kind of interesting as I take that apart to see how that engages or does not engage. So we're going to start by taking off the exterior pieces. We'll take the handle off first. It's a handle screw that'll be holding this handle in. And this is kind of interesting too. This is a square handle shaft. Most of the Daiwa reels have a 5-sided one. All right, let's take the spool off. This spool has got very yellowed line on it. It's probably an indication of the last time that the reel is fished. One of the pieces of advice I will give to Scott is to make sure that he changes that as he gets this ready to go fishing again. I've also tested the bail, and I just like to just spray that with a penetrating oil. In this case, I'm using WD-40. Just work it in. It'll keep it going for seemingly forever. You can do the same thing here. And again, I just use that as a degreaser and to free it up. I don't recommend that as a lubricant, although it does say lubricates on the package. So we'll take the 3 side plate screws out. I'm going to make sure that this button is in the off position. When I remove the case, I don't need it tangled up inside the main gear. So that's 2. When I'm laying these out on my table, and I'm making sure that the screws are the same size. If they're different, you want to note the size differences of those screws. These all 3 are the same. They're beautiful screws. They appear to be stainless and in good condition. So let's take this side plate off then. We'll find out what's going on underneath. Being careful. It appears that that assembly there comes through the case, not with the case. And this is what I expected to find, just a whole bunch of old dried grease. That's typically the issue here. And so how does that anti-reverse work, right? Here's your anti-reverse, here's your dog. And I think we're going to see a cam action here. Yep, we're going to see a cam action here. It might be difficult to see on the camera. I will try to do my best here. There is a cone shape, so it's wide on this side, narrows underneath, and as you push in the button, it rides down the cone and it engages in that. All right, let's see what we got here. I am doing this one kind of without the benefit of a schematic, and I always recommend, if you don't know a little bit about the fishing reels, if you're a little bit anxious about what you're going to do in terms of the repair, you go out and get this schematic of the reel before you do anything. That's going to tell you how the reel is set up, and it'll give you an indication of where the pieces and parts belong for you to go work on. So if you get the schematic, that's a positive. And if you're doing a reel for the first time, like I am here, don't be afraid to take pictures along the way so that you can note how these go. So for example, this just came out in the assembly. That's how it's going to sit. There's no way to go backwards on this that way because your stud for your crosswind gear is over here. That's just going to go in the parts tray. My parts tray is nothing more than the bottom of a fast food container, and I use that to store all my pieces and parts. We're going to remove this crosswind block. This is a good place for a picture right here. I would imagine it's possible to put this crosswind block in upside down. There's a lot of reels out there where that is a possibility, and I recommend that as you go to do these reels, make sure that you note the orientation of those pieces and parts. So this one has the narrow side down, the wide side channel is up. Once you remove the screw, just kind of hold on to that block and pull up on the axle shaft, and I'm expecting that that would be gummed up with grease, and you can kind of see all kinds of dirt and grease on there as well. So we'll go clean that up. I do wear a glove on my hand to keep a lot of that old grease out, and I do recommend the same for you. And I only wear it on the one hand. One of our viewers shared a note with me the other day, said, why don't you take one of your gloves that you wear on your left hand, cut the fingertips out, cut them off kind of here, and that way you can protect most of your right hand from any of the greases and contaminants that might be in a reel. That's a good idea, thank you. We should be able to just pull this out now. The only thing that would have been blocking it is the other piece, and I think maybe we're just kind of probably stuck with a bearing in there. I'm just going to go for a little bit of an assist here. Just a light tap just to get it out, and you can see why it wasn't cooperating. We have a bushing on this side. That bushing is pretty tight. I'm not sure if that was pressed on or not. Usually they're not. We're going to see here. I'm just going to flood that out. This is the screw for my crosswind block. You don't want to lose that, so let's put that in there. And I'm ever so gently going to just kind of grab that bushing and see if it turns. It's not turning, so that may be pressed on there. Yeah, it would be pressed on there because there's a bushing in the case as well. All right, we're going to take the dried grease out of here. We're pretty much identifying that that's the culprit already. I'm going to use 4/0 steel wool. It's a fine grade steel wool. It's meant for buffering or buffing. It's not meant for any kind of aggressive removal of things like an abrasive kind of a quality. So I find that that one works well when I'm trying to polish up shafts and the like. And this one has some dried grease here, so it probably was bottoming out as well in the operation. So I'll take that and then we'll wipe that down with a paper towel. I don't like to be any more aggressive with these cleaners than I need to be. And that piece will go into my parts tray as well. We'll take the screwdriver then and we'll scrape off the old grease here. That's a nice gear. I'm not sure, it might be bronze, it might be some other alloy, I'm not quite sure. But I'm just working to get that gummy glue off. We'll use that penetrating oil, and then I'll grab a bristle brush and I'll just try to work through removing that from the gear teeth. That's not working very well, so I'm going to switch over to a pick that can slide inside of those teeth. And while I'm doing this, I'm checking to make sure that the teeth are uniform, that there's no bends or scrapes or dings or missing teeth or things like that. I'm also pushing that off onto my paper towel. That way it doesn't land up on my bench and become problematic for the next reel, and it doesn't get caught in this reel as we're doing that. Okay, nice and clean. Do the same thing here. Check the teeth on the main gear. Make sure that they're all those channels are clear and that they're clean, and they are, and we'll go put that back in. And now what we need to do is we need to come up top and remove the rotor. So that's too deep for a traditional box wrench to kind of fit in. You don't want to work with something like that if you can avoid it. So I'm going to grab a deep socket. Looks like it's either going to be a 13 or a 14 millimeter socket. And I keep those close at hand just, well, because I tend to use them a lot. And it's better than just kind of leaving the reel around. We're going to try the traditional off manner, which worked here. It's a traditional counterclockwise removal of this rotor nut. Note that there is a little kind of a hold-fast washer, and then we have one here that's a clamp that holds the rotor on. Notice there's an indentation here that's going to sit around that stud. You should be able to remove the piece now. That was worse than it sounded, or it sounded worse than it was, I guess. I just hit my parts tray with my elbow. No harm, no foul. The rotor nut goes in there. Check the bottom of the rotor, make sure it's nice and clean. If there's any sand or kind of debris in there, make sure that that gets cleaned out. We're okay with that. And now we want to come over to the bearing assembly. Notice what we have here now. We have a triangular pattern on that collar, and we have the trip ramp for the bail release with a bigger screw on the back end pointed to the handle, right? Handle directly in line with that. That's important to note. If you change them up, if some of these can change, some don't, but if you change these up, you'll have the bail firing in a different position. Sometimes, well, it just gets in the way. So note these, take a picture here, use your cell phone, use a camera, use a video, doesn't matter, but take a picture of it when you're into something like that. That way there's no confusion at all about what it is that goes where in terms of orientation and the like. Same thing with this. This one's a little bit more difficult to mess up because it's got a flanged side to it where those two screws are seated. And I imagine it'd be very easy just to put it in backwards and have the high side of those screws out. So make sure that you note that you have the tapers here and go ahead and put that in. I'm going to put those into my parts tray so I don't lose them. These little screws and pieces have a tendency to just kind of move around. So before I pull out, that's one massive bearing. Just going to flood that with some penetrating oil, let it get in there. That should facilitate pulling this out. And this one came out easily. They don't all come out that easily, so I'm going to remove the bearing. Both sides of the bearing are the same. I test the bearing like this to rotate it. Hashim has just sent the note in, so why don't you do it this way? Kind of put some pressure on your screw and do it that way. That's okay. That's a good test. He's an auto mechanic. I guess he would know a little bit more than I do about some of these things, but you'll notice the inner race is not turning. The outer race is turning fine. So there you go. Thank you for the tip. All right, that's going to go into my tray. We're going to do the same thing here that we did with the other one now. We're going to make sure that this all gets cleaned out. Again, we'll just kind of rinse and repeat. We'll put some penetrating oil on there to loosen it up. We'll get ourselves the hard brush, scrape onto the paper towel. Check the teeth while we're doing this, make sure that there's symmetry there. And then just kind of wipe it off with the excess. Easy enough. All right, a little bit of a light coat here. The reel is relatively easy to service, so if you're in a situation where you're a little bit concerned that maybe the task is too much for you, this one I think you should be able to do. Again, just follow some of the steps we were talking about there. You should be fine. The idea of the channel is to teach you how to do it yourself. It'll also help if you're enjoying the hobby of reel repair. You'll learn how reels come together, how they come apart, how they break and why they break, and how to go repair them as part of the general videos that I do. Some people say I talk too much. They're probably right, but I'm trying to pass along what I know, and sometimes that just requires a little bit of an explanation. All right, that anti-reverse dog, you can see here, maybe a little bit better now. There's a cone here. I don't know if you're picking that up. there's a cone here, high side, low side. The low side is when it's engaged. You want this resting on the high side now. And we're going to use a fishing reel oil now just to put a drop of oil onto the dog so that that continues to work nicely. And then we'll go ahead and put that bearing assembly back in. That's how it loads. Make sure that you're flush on the top. If that's not flush, don't go ahead and do anything more. Stop and get it right. All right, I did notice that you can't mess this one up too much because that's a wider diameter screw than the other two. And I guess you could put one of them in wrong, but you couldn't put them both in wrong. Remember that the taper here is for the flathead screws that go below. And those of you that know me and know my video, well, it's that time where those small screws get in the way of things. So if you'll just be patient, I would ask you to take a moment. If you haven't, please subscribe to my channel. And if you do subscribe, please hit the notification button, because that notification button will tell you when I post. And I've been trying to post daily recently since this pandemic began. I can't believe it's all those months and months ago now, but I've been trying to post to just kind of keep myself entertained and keep others entertained. And if you hit that notification button, you will see when those new videos are released. Generally, I've been releasing them in the evening, and you'll be able to tell whether that's a video you want to watch or not. All right, we got one more. We're trying to get this thing started to put into the ramp. And while we do that, if you have a question on this reel or any reel in particular, maybe you're working on one. I just got one earlier today about a pen reel where they're trying to reset the main gear and can't seem to get around the anti-reverse dog and those kinds of things. Well, just ask. Worst I could tell you is I don't know the answer to it. And the best I can tell you is that, yeah, I do know the answer to it, and here's what you need to do. So don't be afraid to ask. Again, this is kind of about knowledge transfer here, so I don't mind trying to do that. All right, here we go. You got the rotor now goes on. And we have this little piece that's got a keyway to it. So find the flat on the pinion gear, slip that over, and then align your keyway with that little stud so that it wraps around it. We'll go next for that little tension washer, and then we'll put the rotor nut on. And we're going to reverse the throw of the wrench so that we can tighten that down. And this is a good time. Give it a spin. There's nothing that's going to go wrong here. So give it a spin, and that's a beautifully operating fishing reel right now. It just spins so nice and easily. And if I guess you were concerned about does the bail trip, well, do that too while you're at it. It trips beautifully. All right, now we're going to take our main gear. We're going to go in and do that part of the assembly. I'm going to grease that up first. I want to make sure that everybody uses fishing wheel grease when it's time to do the repairs. In this case, I use Penn precision wheel grease. I really don't have a care too much about which greases you use, but please use fishing wheel grease when you do your reel. It wouldn't surprise me if the last grease on this reel was something other than fishing wheel grease, and that's why it bogged down. But I can also tell you it's been a long time since this reel's been serviced, and any reel of that that goes that length, regardless of what the grease is probably going to dry out and cause the problems. So I'm just using an artist's brush and some fishing reel grease to get a good amount of the grease on there. You don't need to get it in every tooth, but we're going to do enough of it. All right, this little piece fits inside the other. There we go. We're properly seated there. If you had any questions, spin the reel. Make sure that your main gear is spinning. And we had the side case assembly. I'm going to put that off for a moment as we go for the axle. Light coating of grease, because when you go through the pinion gear well, if you put a lot in there, it's just going to come undone. We've cleaned up the crosswind block. We're going to put grease into the channel here and grease onto the face. Remember what we said, the low side is down. So it's going to ride this way. And then you want to align the hole in the axle shaft with the hole in the crosswind block. And then grab your screwdriver to tighten that down. So Scott, you have a beautiful reel here. I know you know that. But this is a very nice example of the reels of the day. Just looking for my pick to align that that hole nut there so the screw isn't setting very well. And just be patient about it. I know I've said this before, but one of the first pieces of advice I got when I started into doing reel repair was you need to have patience. Don't force anything. If it's not going, there's probably a reason for it, so take your time and reset. And have a sense of humor, because things like, well, what just happened there where the screw bounced out on the floor, just kind of have to laugh it off. Don't get mad. And we'll put a little bit of grease onto the little ramp that it's riding on there. This is our crosswind block. This is the gear that drives. So I'm going to put a little bit on the back of the case. Load the gear. And the big teeth of this gear are going to ride off of the teeth on this one. Once you do that, you want to do two things here. You're going to have to align the case and the stud. So I like to move it down to the bottom. That's a good indication that that's where it's going to wind up. Then you're going to visually sight it. And it takes a little bit of doing here. There we go. That's what you're waiting for, that nice snap. You get a crisp snap like that, it means it's properly seated. There's 3 of those screws now. We already did the check on that to make sure that those screws were all the same. We'll go and grab our screwdriver then, put those in. And if you have a question on this reel or any reel in particular, if you leave it in the comment section, I try to generally answer those questions in the mornings. So most of my videos are published in the evening, at least on the East Coast it's the evening. And when I kind of get up before I start the day in the shop, I try to answer the questions that have come in from the night before. So back to what we were saying about patience. Please be patient if you do answer a question. We're on the East Coast, so it does translate to a couple of hours difference. And again, I kind of have a routine that says before I get in the shop, go answer the questions, because once I'm in the shop, well, I'm doing videos and doing other things, and that gets in the way of answering the questions. Also gets in the way of answering the phone. I know there's a phone number on the business card that follows, and if you want information on my repair services, which I do by mail, you can certainly leave me an email on the business card. But if you try calling that number, generally I'm working and that number doesn't get answered. It's probably the least efficient or effective way to do that. All right, let's come over to the spool then. Again, I'm going to tell Scott, get rid of this line. It's very old. You can just see that needs to be replaced. No sense losing a fish of a lifetime because of bad line. I'm going to use a pick now to pull out these 5-sided spring clip, and it is a spring. It holds the drag stack in. That's the features. That's what it's supposed to be doing. But make sure you hold on tight to that, otherwise you'll be kind of looking around the shop for it. Okay, we have a hard washer underneath the first washer. And that's what we have. We have a single washer system. Wow. Yeah, that's just a single washer system. Kind of surprised by that. That says the max drag on this reel isn't very much max. I'm wondering, while I'm looking, there's no indication that there's additional washers under here. No, there's a groove cut in here for a eared washer, but this is a solid molded one. All right, well, there you go. Learn something all the time. One hard washer, not a lot of max drag in this reel, folks, if that matters to you. That's a hard washer. You don't need to lubricate it. All you simply need to do is put the clip back in, make sure that it's in the grooves, and then we can reinstall. We'll give it a test, see how we did. Scott, you have a beautiful reel. I'm going to bet that this thing is going to scream now as opposed to the kind of struggling that it was doing before. Look at that. You can fish this one all day and not get your wrists all bent out of shape or anything. Make sure that we have a functioning bail. We do. Beautiful reel all around. So that's it. That's how to service, take apart, clean, and get ready for fishing again. A Daiwa 7850 RL, designed and engineered by Daiwa of California, not of Japan. Very interesting. And in addition to that, as we noted, it has this kind of unique override feature where you can shut it off and backpedal the reel. Very ingenious. Okay, hope you've enjoyed that. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Please, everybody, stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. If you're a first responder, thank you for everything it is that you do. Same thing for our essential personnel. Everybody trying to keep us busy during this holiday season, as well as during the onrush of Omicron. I do appreciate all of your efforts. Thank you very much. This is Dennis. Have a great day.